Money-wise, it had been a hard couple of weeks, months, and now moving into years for Emma. The self-help book industry, her cold face for most of her life, was in ruins. The last time she had a book published was 3 years ago, and the royalty checks had been shrinking every payday since. Luckily, Emma had her cabin in the middle of blissful nowhere. She'd lived alone for years. Just her and the dogs, no debts, no dependents, and no problems. Just less money to live on each month. All in all, it was a perfect life for someone who'd spent her entire life telling other people how to live their lives. Emma stared at the blank screen, illuminating her face. She'd always been good, no, one of the best, at writing self-help books. It was not the most usual of professions, but get thin or die trying, and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Nuns had been bestsellers. Even better to better you had sold units. And then everything had stopped. Her publisher refused to take her calls, and her agent had quit to go and live in Nepal. Out of the blue, no one wanted self-help books anymore. She drained the last of her brandy and put the plastic cup next to the reason why self-help had lost friends and any influence over people. Perfection. No author. No publisher. It appeared on Amazon Kindle 4 years ago, and within a year had become the best-selling book of all time. The only reason Emma had a hardcover copy was paying through the nose for an Amazon auto-publish version. It even cost so much she could only afford 29 bottles of brandy that month. 3 years ago she bought the book, ordering it after reading the last email she'd received from her publishers, possibly from anyone not counting newsletters. We need our version of perfection fast. Accepted synopsis will receive a $500,000 advance. The world's greatest self-help book had sat on her desk, between the laptop and leaning tower of plastic cups, ever since. The reason Emma hadn't read the book wasn't a lack of motivation, laziness, or even ambivalence, but a simple rule. Never compare yourself to your competitors. Review, refocus, and regurgitate. Harper Lee Press, 2004. So while Emma had penned 17 self-help books and been lauded in the psychospeak industry for almost 23 years, she'd never read one she hadn't written. Not that she wasn't curious of other authors' work, mind you. Some self-help books over the years had been intriguing, and others had buzzword titles so good the byline should have been by this now. She just didn't feel the need to lose weight, gain friends, or have an efficient wardrobe. There was something about perfection, though, that made it almost irresistible to everyone. Everyone except Emma. She was intrigued, though, with this book beyond any that had come before. Yes, it would be nice to see how someone wrote one of the greatest-selling books of all time. And what makes it so engaging, so fulfilling, and how it actually does what it says on the cover, bringing perfection to people's lives. You see, within a month of finishing the book, every reader becomes perfect. Their work-life balance, perfect. Ideal weight achieved. Relationship, family, and emotional issues, solved. Life in general, perfect. All within a month. How was this possible? Emma had spent the last few years scouring the web for an answer. She certainly wasn't going to read the thing and become perfect after all. But she'd found very little. The book was universally praised when it was discovered in Amazon's vault. Once it became the fastest-selling book of all time around the world, the audiobook was inevitable, and the results from listening the same as reading. Broadcast 24/7 on radio, television, and through all media platforms. An inevitable backlash never materialized, as those who complained about the book were challenged to read it and never heard from again. Not because of anything sinister, but their lives had become perfect. In effect, any human being, in any country on Earth, who read or listened to the book became perfect. This, in turn, created perfect societies around the world. Initially, people stopped smoking and drinking and looked after their health. Then a perfect work-life balance for the whole of society meant even police officers could work from home, especially because there was no crime. There were monumental improvements in the environment without cars and aeroplanes, and there were no more wars, diseases, and poverty. The entire world was happy. However, perfect people do not a perfect world create. The first cracks in the system appeared when the last politician left office about 2 years ago. No politicians felt perfect, but when the food began to run out, as there were no farmers, no one was available to save society. It was the nicest zombie apocalypse you could imagine. People literally sat at home in blissful ignorance of their fate and passed away. Essentially, there was no more life left in the human race. I'm sure you have guessed by now that I am Emma, posting this on the last social media site working in the world. I have not seen another person posting on here in 4 months, but if you are reading this, then you are maybe the last person with free will in the world. For now, I'm picking up my copy of Perfection and will read my first self-help book. I know it will be my last.